Good afternoon. That's right, howdy. I like that. That's the way it needs to be right there. Everybody hear me all right in the back? How's the foyer look out there? We got a bunch more coming. I'll give it a minute. All right. Well, I'm super excited to be here today, and I want to start out thanking everybody coming out and being with us today. This is our second forum regarding the short-term rentals inspection program, and I survived the first one, so I'm here to be here with y'all today. I just lost one tooth out of it. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't have it before I come in here, I'll be honest. I'll get it back in February, so excuse me. I'm a little still recovering from the meeting the other day. Believe it or not, as much as I've been speaking, I'm losing my voice in and out a little bit, so just bear with me. Pray for me as we go through this. And the plan is I'll go through my PowerPoint presentation, and afterwards we'll start in on the Q&A sessions. I do request that y'all hold the questions to the end, because a lot of the questions will be answered through this PowerPoint presentation, and that way it will keep us kind of streamlined and on track. We did actually go quite a bit longer the other day, just because of the good participation. So I just want to introduce myself starting out. My name is David Puckett. I am your friendly fire administrator for Sevier County, and I'm also the chief of Sevier County Fire and Rescue. Many of y'all have had the unfortunate experience of seeing me on the news over the last few months regarding burn bans and this, that, and another, right? So I'm sorry if you had to see me more than you needed to, but I'm glad, I really am glad that you came out today. I'm really glad to see folks that's been here, that came to both sessions, you know. And, you know, I'm hoping that what I'm looking for is partners in this process as we start this program. The only way this is going to be successful is with partnerships from the owners, okay? And I'm going to put that out there. As a veteran of the fire service, I've been in here. I started as a volunteer in 1997, and I was with the city of Gatlinburg for 2001 till 2019. Was one of their battalion chiefs and their wildfire coordinator up there. Community outreach, public safety that's who I am. I live, breathe, and sleep it, and I always have been. I don't know what it's like to work a normal schedule. I know several of y'all have been in law enforcement and other forms of communication or emergency service in here, and I appreciate your service. So I'm going to kind of go over a little bit about it for the fire service in the county before we start the presentation. And if I get too far from the mic, raise your hand or whatever, and I'll speak up or come back. But I'm kind of a wanderer, so I don't like standing in front of a podium, okay? I like checking the audience out, working the crowd, right? I'm just kidding. So as I said, I've been in the fire service for about 20-some years. The majority of my career experience has been in this county, in the city of Gatlinburg. I'm originally not from here, originally from up toward Bristol. And, you know, my lifelong goal is to be a firefighter. And I know y'all not here to hear about me, but I think it's important that you know who I am and why I'm here and why I'm presenting this program to y'all and trying to put it in place. But been doing it for a long time, and you know, we've seen a lot of things over the years here in this county, a lot of disasters, and as the fire chief, I owe it to our citizens and our visitors to try to keep us as safe as we can, and that's kind of where we're going on this. So first thing is a test. I got a question for you. How many of y'all are aware that outside of the municipal limits of the cities, that pretty much 100% of your fire service is volunteer? So how many of y'all would agree that it's increasingly harder to acquire volunteers and getting them trained for the response? So the first, as I was brought in as the fire administrator, the first several years of my job was to collect data, analyze runs, emergencies, and in that time, I'm looking to see what kind of emergencies we're responding to, what's causing those emergencies, what can we do to prevent those emergencies, right? Because the fire that is prevented, somebody asked me, what's the best fire? And I said, the one that's prevented, or the one you roast marshmallows with recreationally, right? And in the last about 10 years, the call volumes have been going up about 12 to 20%, some of them 50% to 100%, depending on the district, due to growth as our more and more people come to visit our wonderful county. I remember when I got, back 20 years ago, it was about, somewhere around 10 million visitors come through a year. And now I've heard anywhere between 15 to 17 million visitors come through. So we're a county of about 97,000 local residents, 98,000, 100,000. But at any given time, we have about 500,000 in town. Somewhere 300,000 in excess. So with all that, as I said, looking at community risk reduction. There's a lot of things. The state fire marshal's office actually gives Sevier County an award. I think it was last year for some of our risk reduction programs that we have. The FireWise program, in which we work with folks about wildfire hazard mitigation, and in this risk assessment model, what our goal is to reduce these hazards so that the number of responses don't continue to go up. So what I was saying earlier is the responses are increasing about 12% a year. The volunteer fire service that protects this county was responding to a couple of thousand incidents on a year, which was very manageable. We're now up to pushing 6,500 to 7,000 emergencies a year. Okay. And that's a lot of emergencies across the county. So as you've seen in the paper, we've got a lot going on. We've got some of our newly hired folks that we're putting out there to try to get some paid fire service in this county. And they're in the room. I'll kind of briefly introduce those here in just a minute. But I want to kind of give you a backstory a little bit about the history of the fire service in this county. And I noticed that before I start the presentation, I do want to mention two things that I didn't mention the other day. So I've given y'all a magnet that hopefully you're not sitting on, but it was in your seat, and I've also given some fire deputy community books out as well. I was not anticipating all this. When we had our first meeting, the room was packed, standing room only. It done my heart good to see all the folks coming out to participate. And I had about 200 fire deputy community workbooks. So we had about 150 the other day, and it looks like we probably got about 150 today. So needless to say, I didn't have one for every seat this time, but I'll talk about that. So these magnets are available through the fire marshal's office, through Visit My Smokies, that we have these. If you want these, you can get with us to go in your properties. These magnets are obviously, they go on a refrigerator is generally where we get people to put them. A few years ago when I was with Gatlinburg, we decided to develop something to help, to notify ways that they get emergency alerts when guests come to town. And we had marketing help us, and we had a whole bunch of very, very smart people help us to design these. But when we started out with this, it ended up being like a trifold document, a big thing. And, and I had the foresight to bring in the marketing department, and they're like, crazy, there ain't nobody gonna look at a trifold when they're on vacation. They said, you need something simple, something simple. I was like 20 bullet points? And they're like, no, like 10 bullet points or less. So that's where this come from. And she explained it best to me. She says, imagine putting this on the fridge, and every time they go to get a beer, they read one line on it. After 6 beers, they're not going to read it no more. So that's kind of where it came about, short and simple. It's got information on where the rental is, because we all know that a lot of times we give the rentals names, we don't give them addresses. And in the event of emergency, they don't know what to tell 911. The other things, it's got fire safety tips, and at the bottom down here, it's got a place for you to put a number for them to call, or for the fire department to call in the event that something happens at your property at 2 o'clock in the morning if we're there because of whatever reason, and we need to get hold of somebody, and we don't feel comfortable with your guests staying in there. We need to get hold of somebody. We don't want to have to tell them they can't go back in because it's not safe if somebody can go get some smoke alarms or something put in. So that behooves everybody to put that in there. The other thing are QR codes. Has everybody seen my Smoky Bear fire rating signs across the county? That's part of my hazard mitigation on risk reduction, to educate folks on the fire danger ratings out there. And I'm going to tell you, there's days we try to keep those things changed, but there's days that it may have the wrong reading on it, but we try to stay on that. But it references the AM 1680 broadcast. The AM 1680 broadcast is our emergency alert, and the guests can scan the QR code and actually stream that for emergency alerts. Now, there's another QR code on here that they can actually go and register for Code Red emergency alerts while they're in town. Once again, big safety piece. I wanted to lead off with that because I totally forgot. I had those out the other day and didn't get a chance to actually explain them. The other thing is the Fire Adapted Community Workbook that Tennessee Department of Forestry has been so generous to provide us with. That's right, Brooke. I see you back there. Thank you. He brought me 2 boxes of them, which we went through just like that, and he'll need to bring me some more. But the pictures in that book are from fires in East Tennessee. In Tennessee, this is not a publication that was just developed somewhere and brought here. This is our publication that has pictures of our fires, and it's got fire safety tips and things in there for the cabins, okay? So I wanted to start that out and kind of make sure I didn't forget it before I get started. So I'll go ahead and get started on the PowerPoint. So let's talk a little bit about timeline. I mentioned that I was hired in 2019, and then I gathered data after data after data to try to come up and formulate ways to keep Sevier County safer. Some of those ways has been writing grants and getting materials for the fire service, increasing the fire service funding so that we can, obviously with everything else going through the roof, the price of a fire truck has doubled as well. So let me ask y'all this as we go into this. In a county, not a municipality, not a city, but in a county, can property tax be used to fund a fire service? It cannot be. It absolutely cannot be. She's shaking her head back here. She wins a koozie. This is a Smoky Bear koozie. This is only you to prevent forest fires. Now, he only approves water and his koozies, okay? So just keep that in mind as we go forward to this. So obviously with a lot of our risk reduction programs that we've put in place, we've been working. When I say risk reduction, I mean I'm looking at everything that's causing emergencies in our county and trying to do whatever we can on response. Like as far as high fire danger days, we've been upstaffing the fire service, and they've been standing by at their stations, which has helped great. Way more notifications on that kind of stuff. It goes back to the Swiss cheese analogy. When all the holes in the Swiss cheese line up, that's when you have a disaster. And the more of those that I can mitigate ahead of the time, the less disasters we're going to have, right? So we're trying to be very proactive, worked with the electric system on a lot of things, tree trimming and things, fire-wise, removing brush and removing those kind of hazards as well out there, getting community involvement on things like that. But in January of this year, or actually before January, some of the other things that I've been working with over the last few years is the number of complaints that was rolling in. We got a fire administrator now. That's where the complaints go when we have issues at cabins. And let me ask you this. Prior to the county passing or doing the code amendment this year, was a rental cabin a house or a commercial property in the eyes of the state? It's a house. So does the fire service have the ability to come into your house, sir, and tell you what you can do and what you can't do? No, I can't, because it's residential. So when I would get these complaints of deck failures and some really horrible complaints, okay, that just made me not want to sleep at night for the safety of our folks, what could I do about it? Very little. And if it was in properties that slept greater than 12, based on the 16 ruling, it fell under something else, and the Tennessee State Fire Marshal's Office permitted those structures. So I didn't even have a number that I could call and be like, hey, I'm talking to the inspector, come inspect this. I had to go and fill out a anonymous complaint and let it go through their system just like you would or anybody else. And then I had no idea whether it was followed up on or not. So these continued to come in and continued to come in, and sometimes I would have 10, 20 complaints a week. COVID honestly really spurred things up and ramped it up. And so looking at the hazard mitigation and a lot of the risk reduction programs, I started talking about becoming exempt jurisdiction in January or December of about a year ago. In January, we started talking to the state about that. And for those that don't know, the fire code has to be, and the building codes, all your codes have to be within the 7 years of the last adopted code. And I said that right, didn't I, Chris? Yeah, okay. So what that means is we were in the 2012 code, and whether we wanted to or not, we had to adopt the newer codes as they come out. And we were up for that this year. So in that, sorry, I'm going to make sure all my phones are off because they'll go off if I don't. But in that, we changed some of the verbiage in the adoption of the fire code and adopted some pieces identifying a short-term rental as what it is and not a house. So a lot of people don't understand that. Like in your house, your personal house, do you have to have a fire extinguisher, ma'am? No, you don't. So these rentals that we have out here with folks coming in, how many of y'all would agree that a fire extinguisher should be a pretty common thing that you have in them? So if they don't have one and they come to me and want me to make them, what do I tell them if it wasn't passed? I encourage it, but I can't make you do it. So if I can't make you do it, then what did a lot of people do? They didn't do it. So in order to adopt, the intent to adopt a code, it has to be available for 30 days or 90 days for public review. 3 sets of code books were purchased and was here at the courthouse available for anybody that wanted to look at them. And really, the only looking at them is just going to cure insomnia because there were several books about that thick. So it passed in June, the resolution to adopt the codes. And we also had, and once we had that, we had to have a fee schedule passed with it as part of the permit chapter in there for issuance of permits. Shortly then thereafter, we submitted to the state of Tennessee Fire Marshal's Office requesting our exempt status, because that was the other thing. Right now, how many of y'all are in the process of building? I think several of y'all are. How many of y'all are building ones that had to go through the state before? It's an easy process, isn't it? I like that. So a lot of that stuff we wanted to, you get a koozie for that. I like the head nod back there. So a lot of becoming exempt status means a lot for y'all and being able to get permits and stuff, and for us to be able to do it in-house. So on these larger cabins that the state permitted and was required to permit because they slept over 12, outside of the initial CO of that, when they initially done it, number one, the state was doing the project and none of your people here local had the ability to actually have anything to do with that. Okay, why is that an issue? Well, your fire departments wouldn't know about it. We wouldn't have those information, the pre-plans or anything like that, and they were permitting something that was out of our power. So having the exempt status puts the power back with us. It should be simpler in that aspect. A lot of people has asked me why we have waited so long before we've had these meetings. And that is totally 100% fair question. To be 100% honest with you, look at the timetable. We submitted, we've been in contact with them from the beginning of the year about discussing this. We couldn't submit it until after the July. We submitted and had everything ready to go. It wasn't until the November 28th that we got the notification from the state that we were exempt. So, if I'd had these forms before that.
Can you clarify what you mean by exempt status?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. You get it. So, exempt status, there are certain things. A county is what? A county is an extension of the state of Tennessee, right? So, if we're wanting to do anything different, like, let's say this, like a city, if they want to pass an ordinance or whatever, they can do that. It's a little different for a county because we're an extension of the state. So permits and everything that the state would typically issue, we couldn't issue as a county. It would have to go through the state, and then we wouldn't have that say in it. So being exempt from it doesn't mean that we can deviate from the states. We have to maintain the state, but we can regulate it in county versus out. Thank you. That's a wonderful question. You're going to get a bandana for that. Awesome. Thank you. So if I had done these forms before we got our exempt status, there was a few things that would have changed what we're talking about today. And for the sake of not wanting to confuse everybody, I wanted to tell you one message. I didn't want to say, if this happens, we'll do this. If that happens, we're going to do this. Does that make sense? Everybody on the same page? And that's why we waited. Now, let me be the first to tell you, just like I've told many of them in here, the purpose of this program is because I want to increase safety for our folks. Okay? That's why I'm doing this. That is my heart. That is my passion. I am tired of running the calls, the fatalities, and looking at things that could be prevented and them happening. Okay, so this is, on that piece, that's coming from right here for me. With that being said, for this program to be successful, it's more than just me. It's more than my inspectors. It's about everybody working together on this, okay? And with that being said, just about everybody that's coming up to me and said, man, I really don't envy you. I do not want to be you. I think you're doing a great job and got a good mission, but I wouldn't want to be you. Well, I can't sleep at night because of these things, because I want things to be better. And the only way that we're going to succeed at it is working together as a team. And there's going to be stumbling blocks, and there's going to be issues arrive that we didn't think about, and that's the reason we have these forms and the questions. We take them back and we try to learn from it and try to make the program as manageable as we can. When we come up with it, we were reviewing all the other programs around and trying to take everything into consideration of what was best for our county moving forward. So I'm just putting that out there. We're going to work with each one of y'all, and we're going to do our best to make things as peaceful, as streamlined as it can possibly be. We've gotten some new folks here added to the department now. Like I said, about 98% of the county was volunteer service. We're starting to get some paid folks. I've got, my inspectors wave their hands. There's more of you than that. You two back there, y'all are inspectors as well. So as I was talking about, we hired 5 dedicated inspectors for the program. And a lot of y'all's math are really good. Okay, you're really good, because I was like, how are you going to pull that off with the number of inspectors? I agree. That's going to be very difficult. But not only are they inspectors, I'm an inspector. All of my admin staff are inspectors. Battalion chiefs, captains, wave your hands. What did y'all just take?
Tennessee Fire Inspector's course.
Like mind, one accord. So I'm trying to bring these guys and gals on, educate them in inspections out there, because they're going to be, this is part of this, and it's part of the perk of this program that we'll talk about here in a minute. So the network is stronger than just the 5 inspectors that a lot of people has been throwing that number around. So like I said earlier, short terms are very popular in our county. Honestly, this is, everybody wants to come here, and for obvious reasons. It's a beautiful place. Everybody loves Dolly. We want to go to Dolly World, as they say, right, in Sevier County. But it's a great place to come and visit, and a lot of people like it. So, well, what do they end up doing? They're part of our community now. So, y'all are going to look at this number and say 6,500. Wow, that's probably not accurate. You're probably right. So based on the records that we're getting on taxes, etc. Now, we're talking about unincorporated, out of the city limits. You're still probably right. So when we built the program, we're building off of what? The known, right? And as we learn more, things will have to be adjusted in the program to keep up, so on and so forth. So understand that the focus of this program is for the safety of our guests, for the safety of our general public, for the safety of my firefighters. My firefighters are going into these properties. I kind of like them. I don't want to have to look at their spouse and tell them why they didn't come home, and that I've done everything I can do to make us a safer place. So the purpose of this program is to identify and address potential safety hazards in the short-term unit. If you see stress, that's the short-term rental unit. I'd like to name it something else, but that's what they told me we had to name it, so that's what we're going with. Ensure that they are in compliance with the applicable building codes and fire codes. And I know there's a lot of questions going in your mind. Just please bear with me and we'll go through them. And obviously is back to the safety of the guest and our visitors. So I've got a few pictures of the ones that I deal with daily. Came up, checked in. First thing everybody does when they check in, they go to the porch for the view. They've been on a long car ride, they go to the back porch, they want to see the view. A lot of times they smoke that cigarette too and throw it off the balcony, but we won't talk about that. But it's no different. You go to the beach. As long as I've ever went to the beach, the first thing I done when I get to the beach is go look at the ocean. And the last thing I do before I leave is what? Look at the ocean. And that's what your guests do. They look at the mountains. So they went, they looked at the mountains, and they ended up on the rock. The one on the left was a brand new cabin. Brand new cabin. Guess what? Failed its deck inspection. So why did it fall? They rented it anyways. On the right, this is just showing one that has been older but has been maintained. You can see where they've replaced boards. I probably would have split some of the scenes on that, but we're not the pretty police. We're here for structural integrity, right? I took a page out of Chris's book. Might not look the best, but it's within code. Once again, just this year alone, we've had several deck failures, hot tubs down through the woods. One of them in particularly lost, well, we got it back. Dog went off it got up there and went. So some of the common things that we would be looking for when we come out is, obviously from the time a structure is built, Dan, right, from the home builders, from the time it's built, it's in the process of what?
Decaying or falling down.
That is correct. From the time we're born, we're in the process of dying. From the time these are built, they're in the process of demise. So we're checking to see what state of the process that they're in. And we're, looking for the obvious. As I told somebody earlier, I'm not going to take a level out of my truck and put the level up there. I'm not going to get the tape measure out and measure the rise and run of the steps. Okay, that's not the intent of the program. I'm checking to see if when I step on the stair tread, it doesn't fall through. I'm checking to see in the International Fire Code, it references the amount of stability and the movement of the deck railing and things. Those are things we're going to be looking at. Somebody giggle? We don't see this, do we? Yeah, we do see this. And unfortunately, some of our guests see it a little bit closer when they're on the ground. And this is all not about decks, okay? There's a lot of fire safety things. Placement of grills. You can see over there, if I had a very expensive multi-million-dollar cabin, the last thing I'd want to do is have my deck where that's at, charring the post. It's okay. We put a piece of metal over it, it'll be okay. Checking for obviously being in East Tennessee, we get rain, things settle. There's erosion issues. You can see some of the deck piers over here that can y'all see that okay? Do I need to dim the light? Can we dim the light back there on one side, please? They'll get to it. They're getting to it. All right, there you go. So these are just stacked up blocks over there. Is that a concern? It's a concern. Because what's sitting on the deck? Surely not. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you think that hot tub was on the deck when they built it? Chris, do they ever put stuff in place after you CO it? Never. This family enjoying the evening, heard something, and then they realized the chimney fell off the house. That's a bad day. Santa Claus is not going to be able to make a stop this year. But we see these things. They come and they visit, and some of them's never had a fireplace. They've never known how to work a fireplace. As a battalion or lead supervisor, they call us captain shift supervisors at Gatlinburg. 98 degrees, middle of the summer, I get a call for a chimney fire. I'm like, no, that can't be right. This is not right. Sure enough, I had a bunch of college students come down, visit, and the two things you need for a successful rental, well, I won't have to say three now because there's Wi-Fi. I never did think about Wi-Fi before, but it's a fireplace and a hot tub and then Wi-Fi, right? So they came and had the air conditioning turned all the way down to like 62, 58, as low as it go, and had this rip-roaring fire in the fireplace. And they had the chain mail on the front of that fireplace bulged out. There was so much wood and 2 large cans of lighter fluid in there. They're renting y'all's places. So we have to have these places prepared for what they're going to be faced with within normal reason, right? Obviously, you can't duct tape and bubble wrap the whole place and keep it safe, but for the known things. So like chimneys, getting y'all to check the chimneys and the flues are important, because what happens a lot of times, they put way too much heat in there, and then when it comes time for their dinner show at Dixie Stampede or the Stampede, what do they do to the fireplace? They'll either A, leave it with it open, or B, they'll go get water on it and dump on it to put it out, and that does what to your fireplace? It tempers it, it cracks it, and then the ash falls down into the firebox, and then 2 hours later, 2 days later, the house burns down and we don't know why. So things like that are important. Believe it or not, we're still going in and people don't have working smoke alarms. Or they'll have smoke alarms and there won't be no batteries in them. Okay? Now, depending on the year that the structure's built, you know, that some of them have to be interconnected. But I'm pretty darn psyched just about having working smoke alarms in these houses, okay? I will get that for you. That's the reason I have a guy for that right over here when we get to the questions. So one of my friends, which is in the rental industry and has multiple rentals, and I always like bouncing ideas off of her because I know she's going to shoot me straight, right? On whether I have a harebrained idea or not. She asked me when she built this cabin a few years ago, she said, where should I put my fireplace or my grill? And I said, not around your house. Get it away from the house. And she argued with me a little bit. I said, that's going to be inconvenient for the guests. And I said, it's going to be inconvenient for you to rebuild. So don't put it next to your house. So a few months later, after it opened, as you can tell, this is still relatively a new construction. She sent me this. She got a notification on her Ring camera and watched this for a long time out there burning with nobody ever coming to check on it. I've got these where it goes a step further to where they've had these charcoal grills on porches and it rolling up the char off of the decking. So how does a lot of these fires happen? Why are we going to require these to be moved at least 10 foot away and have some kind of aggregate around it? It's to protect your house, right? It's to protect your structure. That's why we want the metal ash buckets to put the ash in it so that it doesn't catch the woods on fire. I've got one picture that I sent the fire marshal. He didn't add into this, but it has a grill on a wall, the ash bucket beside of it, propane tank down behind the wall, leaves and all that. And when the bucket got full, what did they do with they just threw it over the wall. I'm like, you had a bucket. It happens, you know, and despite the best program, am I going to be able to catch all this? No. That's where the partnerships from everybody coming in that's working together on this, that's where all that comes in. Because if I can remove one hole in that Swiss cheese to prevent a disaster, and you remove one, and he removes one, I like the mustache, by the way, I'm kind of big on mustaches right now, then it's going to be safer for all of us, right? So this program is slated to go into place January 1st. Oh my gosh, that's 2 weeks, right? It's okay. Don't throw nothing at me. We're going to, like I said, the goal of this is we're going to work with you, obviously, because it's obviously going to be a lot of work on us too. This program requires that any of the short-term rentals in Sevier County outside the cities have a permit issued annually following an inspection. So, understand that when I talked about becoming an exempt county, we are only one of 6 counties in the entire state that are exempt, that can manage programs, stuff like this. Most of them are like Knox County, Davidson County, Shelby County, some of the larger places across the state. The requirements is that all short-term rentals outside of the city are required to have that annual permit issued, and obviously following an inspection. Our lovely inspectors I just showed would be the ones that would be doing those inspections. Now, unlike the building inspections, if you build a house and you're building one in Wears Valley and you're building one in Seymour and he's building one in English Mountain, you may have to go to this side of the county and then rush over here to do a footer and go over for mechanical, right? Makes it very difficult. My inspectors have been giving districts. Those inspectors will stay in that district and will be working. There'll be no one knows the property management companies and the owners closer. They're going to know that area and they're going to roam in that area because there's going to be so many of them to do. They're not going to have, I'm not going to schedule them one in English Mountain and then one in Pearl Valley and one Cadence Chapel and one in Wears Valley. That's what helps with this. Same like when they were doing them in Gatlinburg. If they'd go into a community that had multiple, then they would try to get them scheduled and set up to where they could do multiple right there together, and you could knock out a lot more of them. Now, with the things we're looking for, obviously, the larger the cabin, it's going to take more time. The more features that it has, the more we have to look at. So a typical cabin's not going to take near as long as a larger cabin, or a cabin that, you know, that we're having to check other aspects to. I got a call one day from an occupant that said, "I'm really concerned." We checked in, and the pool, they put a pool, they built it onto the house. They actually did not get a permit, no permit. Went and built a whole nother piece onto the house and done an interior pool. And the door to the pool room was, the bunk bed was here, and the door 3 feet from the pool was here. The main bedroom was upstairs. So the cabin had the kids' room with all the games and toys open directly into the pool room, with the parents' room upstairs, with no safety latch or anything on the door to the pool. I'm telling you firsthand, in my career, I've had to be the one that comes in on the ambulance or the fire truck and get in the pool and retrieve and attempt to resuscitate these children. That's a concern. Wasn't permitted. Tell you another little story. It's relevant. I try to keep everything relevant. I worked in the city of Gatlinburg, and we got a call one day as a shift supervisor. The dispatcher hollered at me, and when they holler at me and they don't dispatch us, it's always weird. There's always something to it. And she said, "We got somebody stuck in a deck, and we need you to come out." And I said, "Okay, are they hurt? Do I need to send an ambulance? Do I need to send a rescue truck? What do we got going on here?" "We don't know." "Okay, we don't know." So I said, "That's going to get you a rescue truck, that's going to get you an ambulance, and that's going to get you the supervisor, because now I'm curious." And, you know, Gatlinburg, we had a short-term rental program, and I can tell you from providing fire and rescue and emergency services in an area that had county response that did not have the program, and an area that had that, it was a night and day difference. So we were going out into the county, and the dispatch hollered at us frantically. She says, "Where you at? How long is it going to take to get here?" I said, "We're hurrying as fast as we can." She says, "Well," they called back and they said, "There's a bear under the porch swatting at her leg." I was like, "Okay, this is really getting good now." So as I approached the scene, sure enough, the siren of my vehicle scared the bear away. And this lady had came, and it was her birthday. She had rented it, and I'm not going to say where she's from. But she was in the hot tub. She got out of the hot tub, put one good foot down, went straight up to her rump, and was stuck. So her sister, traveling with her, like any good Southern woman would do, traveled with their own thing, Crisco, for the biscuits. So they lubed her leg up with Crisco. I got there, and I was like, "What in the devil have you done to her?" And I was literally, it looked like she had, and it attracted the bear, and it was up there swatting at this. I'm not making it up, folks. I've still got a picture floating around somewhere, okay? Statute of limitations up. But for us to get her out of the deck, we had to take 4x4s and crib the deck, because it was separated and pulling away, and it had awful look, a bunch of scabbed on 2x4s and 4x4s trying to support the structure where they put a hot tub on it. It's out there. We're seeing it. I run another one. I got a call at 2 o'clock. No, it was about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. The guy called me and he said, "Hey, my house is on fire." And I said, "Hang up and call 911. They're like, but I said, "But what?" And they said, "We don't, we're in," where was it? It was an Airbnb or a VRBO, the headquarters, which is out west. I can't remember, Washington State or something. And she said, I can't do that. And I said, okay, well, where's the fire at? And then she tried to pronounce some of our local terminology on the roads. And I said, honey, you're going to have to spell it because I don't know what you're talking about. And I've lived here a long time. And she told me, and I said, well, have them hang up and call 911. And anyways, we like to never found it. And it was in the county as well. And we got out there, and somebody had bought a house, and they put a fresh coat of paint on it. They needed a fireplace, so they knocked a hole in the wall, run the flue through the wall, no lining, nothing like that, just a bare metal flue pipe. They'd used the fireplace that day, and it caught the wall on fire at night. Went straight on the program from 30 days from the time they bought it to the time they slapped the paint on it and got it on the market. Had them people not been up because they were they had a flight to catch and they were checking out, they could have died. There wasn't no smoking alarms in the house. So obviously what we're coming out and doing is fire safety checks. We're looking for smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors. So let me ask you this. Obviously, carbon monoxide detectors are required for any fuel burning heat source, right? Can y'all name those? What those fuel burning heat sources are? Propane, natural gas, what else? Wood. Who said that? Who said wood? That was a bunch. Was that you, Leland? Might have been. You want a hanky? Exactly right. So a lot of times we discount, here you go, sir. A lot of times we discount the wood burning fireplace, but it burns fuel, it burns oxygen, and it releases byproducts, right? So it's important to have those in there. And if you got gas, you need to have, a propane detector in it as well. So we're looking for that. Electrical safety, we're not electrical inspectors. We're not coming out and checking your circuits and your voltage. But if we walk in and the light fixture is hanging out of the ceiling with exposed wires, or the outlet covers, 9 times out of 10, what gets us to the door is outlet covers, no smoke alarms, falling through the front porch deck, that kind of does it. But a lot of these things will get us out there. And those are the easiest things that we can check and y'all can do as property maintenance and homeowners to correct, right? And we understand how folks are. A lot of them will come out there and they're like, if I play the I take the cover off of the outlets, they're going to give me a free night's stay because I'm going to complain and get the fire department out here, right? You think that ever happens? So if we had inspected it 2 days before and it was fine, it might not be so much of a valid argument. And when we talk about structural integrity, once again, I'm not coming out with a line level. I'm not coming out with a tape measure and this and that, and I'm looking to see what state of the house falling down is in, okay? And is it safe? Like I said, there's been times that we go on calls and we have fell through the floor in places that wasn't on fire. And if we do it, then your guests are probably going to do it too. So I apologize that this didn't come up a little better, but at the end of this PowerPoint, there's a QR code that you scan, and we will get you these documents on what we're looking for. Once again, that fire adapted community guidebook that State Forestry provided us has got wildfire safety tips for your properties. So we're going to look for like accumulation of leaves and this and that. And I'm not coming out here and saying, oh, you got to blow your leaves today, or I'm not going to permit you. This is East Tennessee. You can have no leaves today and tomorrow have 3 feet. That's not it. But we also know what it looks like when you've got leaf accumulation and those things around the house that's been there for decades. You know what I mean? So think about what I said, that people come, they visit, they go out on the porch, they smoke that cigarette, they do that. Where does that land? What's it landing in? Then they go to town, they watch a show, they go out to eat, and you don't have a porch when you come back because it's burnt off. So looking at stuff like that, where where the fire pits are, where the propane grills and stuff are. There's where they're located, proper access and egress to the bedrooms. How many of y'all have seen them put beds in basements with no windows, no doors, no nothing? That's a concern. If there's an event of any kind and the only way out is up the stairs through the fire, it's probably not going to end well. Obviously, making sure that they have smoke alarms, making sure that they have extinguishers, making sure that a lot of times we have people that have taken big screws and screwed the windows shut to where they can't go through, can't get out for whatever reason. I'm not making it up. I've got pictures, I've got, and this is the thing, a lot of it's human nature. Try to fix it as quick as we can, so, I understand that. Just got to keep the safety element in there. Dryer fires, we have a lot of those due to the fact that either they won't keep the ducts clean or they use that plastic material versus the metal ductwork on the cabins, on things of that. That's kind of something we look at. Open burning devices. We don't want a big fire pit on the front porch. You know what I mean? That typically does not end well. But anyways, some of these it's got blurry on that side. We will get you that information. It's not a big list, and most of it you're going to look at and be like, well, that's common sense. Well, common sense ain't that common no more. And those are the things we're looking for. And so on January the 1st, this is where the meat and potatoes gets in. On January 1st, permits will come available online. They cost $250 a year for those that sleep 12 or less. If they sleep more than 12, then it's going to be an additional $25 per cost. Yeah. I'm sorry. Did I say that wrong? Who said that? Yes. So it's $250 for the unit, and then if it's over for up to 12 occupants, more than that, it's going to be $25 per occupant over. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. The larger the structure, the more inspections, the more requirements that we have to check and ensure. So we're allowing from January the 1st through March 31st for folks to come on board and apply. Okay, and it's not a race. If you get the first permit or you get the one on March 31st, whatever, it's not a race. You know what I mean? It's like taxes. You got a time to turn in your taxes there. And it's not saying that come March 31st is you're not getting your permit that you don't get the rent. That's not it. That's the file for the permit. From that point, Miss Amy Miller, where are you at? There she is. Everybody say hi, Amy. Hi, Amy. She is our permit technician, and full-time permit technician at the fire station. She'll be monitoring these, processing them, and getting them to the inspectors so that we can get out there. But the online program, you'll be able to go online. I've got on the next page here, it tells about the site. You can go online. It takes you to the portal. You can fill out the paperwork. It processes the payment, or you can mail the payment, either one, and it gets you in the queue for your inspection. They come out and they're going to give you at least 2 weeks' notice on inspections. The thing is, we want to work with you on that, okay? And if you've got, for whatever reason, that's not a good date, we'll do our best to work with you to try to make that a good time, because we want this to be successful. And on the flip side, it may be, maybe one of them things is like, this day is actually horrible for the inspectors because we're booked up. So the good thing about coming on board January the 1st through the March the 31st is that basically, if you had a house built, and this is where a lot of the questions I hope get answered. If you have a house built in 1990 and it's on the short-term rental program, and it's been rented, and you get your permit, then we're looking at the code for 1990 for that house. If your house was built in 2009, we're looking for the code to hold it to for 2009. If yours was built in 2017, we're doing that. And that way, because that's been the biggest question I've got is, you know, the retrofitting of sprinklers and this and that and another, right? So this is where it's important to sign up and apply during this time. If it's after that, and we are looking at possibly extending that date after some discussion and questions from the previous forum. But if it's after that and you bring an older structure on board, then it's going to have to come to today's standards. So it's imperative to try to get those on board that's existing that you're already renting now than then. So let's say that I'm gonna pick on her. She's all the way over here. She's the very first one. If I get too close to that, it'll squeak. She's the very first one. She wants permit number one. She gets her permit, and let's say for whatever reason, she can't have us in to June to inspect it. Then, you know, if that's the case for whatever reason, and we inspect it in June, then your permit is good from a year from the date of that inspection. Does that make sense? That's part of working with everybody, because I'm not going to penalize somebody because our workload's heavy. Okay, we want to work. Let's say that we come out and I just got to pick on you. You're in the front row. I come out and there's a problem with your deck railing, and it's got a little wiggle, a little more wiggle than I want, but it's not like getting ready to fall plumb off. Then we're going to say, okay, can you please fix this, reinforce it, let's get it corrected. I'm not going to come in and say, you can't rent, get them out. That's not the case. If I fall through the floor while I'm doing the inspection, you're probably not going to get to rent that day. If I get shocked while I'm there, we're probably not going to get to rent that day. But other than that, you know, if it's not an immediate life threat, then we'll work with y'all. And that's talking about the partnership. That's in the mission statement of my department, is cooperation is number one thing. Cooperation, education, preparation, and mitigation. That's it. But the first one, I'll get your question in just a second, is to work with them. Now, if we come in, some of the circumstances that would deem an immediate action, if I come in and you don't have any working smoke alarms in the whole house, I think we would all agree that somebody can go to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy some and put them up before I let you keep renting. With that being said, sorry, I've got some tendonitis. With that being said, if I go out on a fire alarm, on a residential fire call, and he doesn't have his smoke alarm in his house, I'm picking on you. And I'm talking about your home, right? I'm not going to sleep good at night knowing he doesn't have a smoke alarm. And through the state smoke alarm program, I'll install you one for a resident, not commercially, but for a resident. So what I'm getting at here is that's how important it is to me. Our guys, we keep them on our trucks, on our engines and stuff, that I'm not going to leave your house. I'm not, you know, and there's been a couple times at 2 o'clock in the morning, I've said, look, I'm going back to the station because we're out, and I'm coming back to get you one. Just because it's that near and dear to my heart. Other issues would be immediate, that we might have issues with would be, like I said, some of the placement of the sleeping of these people. Some of it is highly dangerous where they're sticking them in closets and stuff. It's been probably 3 years ago. I had a structure fire come up, and it was on the ground, way out, Wares Valley, on top of the mountain, hard to get to, the whole 9 yards. And it was winter, it was like January, and everybody's standing there. You got to think about this time of year, picture everybody showing up on a call and all the occupants standing there in their underwear. 23, 25 degree weather. The house gone. I'm talking to the gentleman. I said, what happened? He said, I was sleeping on the couch. And that raised my first flag. Okay, why was you sleeping on the couch? And he said, I heard the glass break and heard the fire. The fire broke the glass, big picture window, and I had to wake everybody up and get them out. I've got a lot of questions here. Why were you on the couch? He goes, well, there's 16 of us. Okay, so my first thought is somebody defrauded the innkeeper and they brought their wife's cousin's 7 kids with them, right? We see that. That happens. And then I got talking to him, and he says, no, there wasn't no beds. I had to sleep on the couch. I was like, huh, interesting. I said, did you say that you heard the glass break? He said, yeah. I said, was there any smoke alarms in here going? No. There's 16 in this house. Just put on the market. It was on a national rental site, not mentioning any names. They're all standing out there in their underwear in January, in the freezing temperatures. The car keys was in the house that is now burnt down, so I don't even have a warm place to put them. No clothes, nothing. And the property owner actually this time lived in the county and showed up, and I'm talking to her, and I said, so how many do you rent this for? She said, 18. I said, 18 and 16, and there's nowhere to sleep. And it was a newer building, like after 16. So I had, these are some of the things that we're trying to prevent from happening. And if he hadn't woke up and been sleeping on that, we'd have had 16 fatalities. Okay. So, like I said, we're going to be inspecting those. It's good from the date of the inspection. We're going to give you renewal notices. It's going to be staggered. The purpose of having that to where, if I do yours today and his tomorrow, that's to try to set it up to, because we all admit that it's going to be extremely difficult to get out and get all these done in a timely manner. And there may have to be additional staff, et cetera, brought on board. That's where I come back to y'all again as partnering, understanding, because what I'm not going to do is say, you can't rent it until you have this, and it's my fault because I ain't going to do that. That don't make any sense. That's not a good partnership. I wouldn't want to be in that relationship with anybody, especially not on that side. So the benefits of the program, I had a good question asked yesterday about third-party inspectors, or not yesterday, but the other day about third-party inspectors. With having our inspectors come out and do your inspection, they're doing a few things. One, you're getting your life safety inspection, right? Two, they're putting your emergency contact information into our reporting software. The same reporting software that I purchased for all the volunteer departments in the county. Okay, so that if they have to show up at your property at 2 a.m., then they can open and that document and see the emergency contact information for that property. It's also going to be, if they do when they're doing these inspections, it's going to be listed as a pre-plan. So some of the information, obviously not critical or delicate information, is not going to be shared with them. But where the propane, who's got the propane, where the electric is located, the water, things of that nature, critical information about that structure is going to be listed in that pre-plan for the fire departments. Okay? If there's any water suppression, like hydrant locations and stuff like that, it's going to be in there. So that's going to help with that. They're going to be familiar with that and your community in the event of emergency, which will help come back. That information will come back and help us on our emergency planning, okay, for those areas. Also on that, with the insurance being what it is now, believe it or not, I'm getting phone calls pretty darn common on every day that an insurance company is getting ready to drop a company, a place because of lack of this, lack of that, fire coverage, And that's one of the reasons why we're trying to do this program. The funds for this program, the fees on the permits, that goes into hiring the inspectors, buying the trucks, et cetera. Any funds that are more than cost goes to the fire service of this county. Okay, so remember what I said earlier about property tax could not go to offset funding for the fire service. This goes all into that to try to help us get more paid firefighters out there, to try to reduce the ISO ratings, which in return, who does that help on insurance? Everybody. And then on top of that, the response helps those in emergency as well, because, and we've seen that when we've had these high fire danger days, red flag warning days, I've had the volunteers staff up these stations across the county. And what do I mean? Yes, most of the time, when you drive by a volunteer fire station, you don't normally see cars there unless it's training night or meeting night, right? Or they've got an incident. Why? Because they're at work. They may work for y'all. And you know as well as I do that it's difficult for them to get off work to go get the fire truck to come in your house. But when I get them standing by on days of high fire danger days, it reduces that response time and increases the probability of us saving those houses. Also, the inspections. The structures will be triaged so that we know during a wildland event, we'll have that mapped in our inspection program, so that we kind of know what we're getting into as far as access, as far as where the hydrants and stuff are. All that plays into that. In the long term, it's going to protect your investment, right? Because your insurance company is going to like the fact that you've had somebody looking at this. If there was to be an incident there, having a passing life safety code inspection is going to help with that. And once again, it's just like anything else we were talking about. If you go to if I go today and have a physical done, can I have a heart attack tomorrow? I can. Is it possible? The goal is when I have my physical, they're going to catch something, right, to keep me from having a heart attack. It's the same way on the inspection program out there. You know, we're trying to reduce those dangers for our citizens and our guests, and for y'all, for my firefighters, and that's all it is. Okay, and the fee is to offset that. So I know one of the questions I got asked, okay, you know, you got 6,500, what about all the other 500,000 out there they're not reporting, that are not? It'll be a process as we go out, and because trust me, if I go out and I do an inspection on this guy's house, and I'm like, I see a for sale sign or a rental sign in his yard across the road, but yet he ain't on the program, and he's probably going to get a letter. Right, because it ain't fair to you if he don't have to pay. It ain't fair to you if he doesn't deal with hazard mitigation around his place and it burns yours down, right? And there's a lot to that. Oh, I've done it now. I bet you are thinking, no, don't go back. He's almost done. So what happens if we don't comply? That's always the other end of the spectrum, right? What if we don't get a permit? What do we say? We're just going to keep doing what we're doing? And it's always better to be on board and be a part of the solution than it is risk it. Okay, I was telling, I have an agriculture business on the side. I am so big on public safety and this and that I do hazard mitigation work on the side for folks to try to, most of the time it's for free, just to try to help around that. And, I've got dump trailers, and you see dump trucks going up and down the road every day. They're rated for a certain amount of weight, right? They're rated for 10,000 pounds. They're rated for 20,000 pounds. They could put more on them, right? And the only way that we'll ever know that they got more on them is when they can't stop, or if they get checked and verified that they're operating safely. So I try to look at that as an example, you know, that it's each day we wake up and we choose whether to do right or to do wrong or take that risk or not. And, you know, and that's just human nature. The purpose of this program is so that we don't take that risk with somebody else's life. I've got 2 daughters. One of them is getting ready to start driving, and it hits my heart, you know, if you drive up and down these roads and see how some of them drive, that really concerns me. But anyways, so the next steps, beginning January the 1st, you'll be able to go to the Sevier County TN.gov and click on a link, and that will take you to the site to be able to get your permit. And when I said what I did about taxes, you don't get a special star for being the first one or the last one. And I strongly suggest, you know, don't dally at it, but do your best to get your permit in a timely manner. But at the same time, you know, it does concern me at the stroke of midnight that everybody in the county tries to get 6,000 permits and crash the system. But just know, like I said, you know, if you're making the effort to get this, we're working with you on this. And if we come out, you know, we're going to find stuff. These cabins have never been inspected outside of the first one, unless it was you know, there's been a complaint and the states had to come in. Okay, so we understand there's going to be stuff. We're expecting that. And we're not expecting, you know, with that being said, if we're coming back out again, there's not another fee on that, okay? It's not until way down the road that you don't comply, and you're trying not to comply, if you know what I'm saying, that we're going to start looking at, yeah, but we understand it. We're going to work with you on it. I'm hoping that the worst inspection you ever get is probably the first one, and that's where everything is identified and gives kind of a checklist on, you know, what needs to be corrected to get everybody on the same path. And after that, it's just going to be a member. I can come through here, check everything real good, and we're on the road. To where it's not like, got to work on that. I need to look at this. And I've told my inspectors in their training why we're here, to make it better. Okay? And I'm serious. I'm serious. I'm giving you my word that I'm telling my inspectors, I'm telling everybody that's part of this program what the purpose of it is, and that's what I want all opportunity given to work with everybody on this program so that we're safer on it. Okay, well, we're all going to get along and always see things exactly the same. No, we're probably not, but we're looking at the end goal here. Remember that I would strongly recommend you getting them in before March 31st. Obviously, if it's still in the process of being built, you know, it's not got its final CO. I'm not asking you to get a permit for one in the while it's being built right now. Okay, that's not what I'm saying either. But the ones that are out there, get them on board and get them online, and we'll start getting them scheduled and start getting them inspected. So right here is the QR code to flash with your phone. It'll take you to a site. You'll put a little bit of information in. No, we're not going to sell your information. That information goes to us, and we're going to, in return, like that checklist and pertinent information regarding this program, to get it out to you, so that we can make this process as seamless as possible. Like I said, think of when you do your taxes. You got the ones that are first in line on January the 1st, and generally have the tax office lined up out the door around the block, and you got the ones that do it on the last day. They're still doing their taxes, and